Today, we're diving into a really critical issue, one that's kind of hidden in plain sight inside one of society's toughest jobs, social work here in the UK. We're going to unpack why so many truly dedicated people are being forced to just walk away. Let's start with just one number, 8. What do you think that could possibly mean? Yep, you heard that right. According to some pretty startling research from the University of Bedfordshire, 8 years is the average time a social worker lasts before they burn out and leave the job for good. Just 8 years. It's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? So this begs the most important question, right? Why? What on earth is going on behind the scenes? What pressures and what hidden wounds are pushing so many good people out of their careers so fast? Well, to find the answer, we kind of have to zoom out first and take a look at the whole system they're working in. And let me tell you, it is a system that has been under some serious pressure for a long, long time. And you know what's wild? This isn't some new shocking development. Over a decade ago, the huge Munro Review on child protection called it out. They found this targets and terror culture, where hitting metrics and filling out paperwork became more important than the actual human connection with families. And that culture, it has very real-world consequences. A report from back in 2009 found some social workers were spending a staggering 80% of their time on paperwork. Think about that for a second. Only a fifth of their time was actually spent face-to-face with the families they're supposed to be helping. And a lot of folks in the field will tell you it doesn't feel like much has changed. And as if that mountain of paperwork wasn't enough, you've got these dangerously high caseloads. Okay, so a safe, manageable level is about 15 to 20 cases, but it's apparently not uncommon for social workers to be juggling up to 50 kids at once. That's more than double what's considered safe. And the human cost, well, it's just immense. This isn't about statistics anymore. This is about real people. These unmanageable workloads, they lead straight to physical and mental burnout. Just listen to this from a child protection worker. So all these huge external pressures, they lead directly to an internal psychological toll. We're talking about the hidden wounds of the job. First up, there's burnout. And you know, burnout isn't just feeling really tired. It's a specific psychological syndrome that was first identified way back in the 70s. It has 3 key parts. You've got emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, where you start to feel detached, and a sense of reduced personal accomplishment. Then there's something you might not have heard of, but it's just as devastating: moral injury. This term actually comes from the military. It's used to describe this deep ethical wound you get when you're forced by circumstances to do something that goes against your own moral code. So for a social worker, what does that look like? Well, it might mean knowing a family desperately needs help, but being totally unable to give it because of budget cuts or just pure red tape. The symptoms are profound. We're talking shame, guilt, sleepless nights, and it can seriously erode a person's ability to practice with the empathy that got them into the job in the first place. And then on top of all of that, you have this constant daily exposure to other people's trauma. This is what's known as secondary trauma, and it's pretty much an unavoidable part of working with the most vulnerable people in our society. So you've got this system that's already buckling and a workforce that's hurting. Then 2 massive societal shocks hit, and they basically threw gasoline on the fire. They didn't start the crisis, but they sure did accelerate it. First up, a decade of austerity. And I mean, the numbers here are just brutal. Council funding dropped by an average of 40%. At the same time, the need for child protection plans went up by almost 30%. You don't have to be an economist to see the problem here. Way less money, way more need. The system was stretched to its absolute breaking point. And then COVID-19 hits. And this just piled on whole new layers of stress. Suddenly, social workers are totally isolated. They lose that crucial day-to-day support from their colleagues, and the line between their incredibly demanding job and their home life just completely vanished. And it created this feeling, this sense of invasion. Your home, which is supposed to be your safe space, right? It suddenly became just another part of this incredibly high-stress workplace. They were trapped, bringing the trauma of their cases right into their own living rooms. This quote from a social worker during the pandemic, wow, it's just heartbreaking. It says it all, doesn't it? The sheer, lonely despair of trying to cope with the crisis while being completely on your own. So where does all of this leave us? After all this pressure, all these crises, what happens next? And who's responsible for fixing it? Well, the result is a workforce that is right on the brink. I mean, check this out. A 2022 survey found that half, literally 1 in 2, social workers were actively thinking about leaving the profession. 50%. That's not a problem, that's a full-blown crisis. And this, of course, kicks off a huge debate. Where does the responsibility lie? On one hand, you have this idea that individuals just need to be more resilient, practice self-care, be robust enough to cope. But on the other hand, shouldn't employers have a basic duty to create a work environment that doesn't just break people? And a lot of experts are landing firmly on the side of the organization. Remember that targets and terror culture we talked about? Well, this quote really nails it. You get these emotionally barren organizations. And it's simple, right? You can't expect your staff to treat people with compassion if the whole system they work in is the complete opposite of that. And that really brings us full circle, back to our big question. It's the one I want to leave you with. If the system itself is the one causing these deep wounds, the burnout, the moral injury, can we ever really expect individual resilience to be enough? Can it ever truly stop that 8-year clock from ticking?